Welcome back to our study on the book of Revelation. Tonight we're going to be in chapter 17, so go ahead and open your Bibles and turn there now. Chapter 17 is a great follow-up to chapter 16. It doesn't go off on some kind of rabbit trail. It really just follows up to 16, talking about the city of Babylon and the destruction that's going to happen as a result of the pouring out of God's wrath. And so, before I get started, this is one of the more complicated chapters to interpret. You can read this chapter out of context and just be like, what is going on? What are they referring to? Who is this whore of Babylon? What is going on with this? I really think this is a difficult chapter to understand unless you have this filter. That the woman that is described in the beginning of chapter 17 is referring to a one-world false religion. Like a major player, but it's a false religion, a false theology. And so if you have that lens, I think the rest of it kind of makes sense. So let's look at it with that lens and that filter, and let's go ahead and start reading chapter 17. One of the seven angels who had poured out the seven bowls came over and spoke to me. "Come with me," he said, "and I will show you the judgment that is going to come on the great prostitute who rules over many waters. The kings of the world have committed adultery with her, and the people who belong to this world have been made drunk by the wine of her immorality." All right, so pretty damning statements here spoken about this woman. First of all, she will be ruling over many waters. So that means it's going to be a worldwide thing. There's going to have at least worldwide influence. The kings of the world have committed adultery. So the rulers of different kingdoms, different countries will be endorsing this religion, this theology. And it's this religion that will be convincing people to drink the cup of her immorality. So it's going to be anti-God. It's going to be living in a way that does not follow Christ's teachings in the way we're supposed to live moral, pure lives. Verse 3. "So the angel took me in the spirit into the wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and blasphemies against God were written all over it. The woman wore purple and scarlet clothing and beautiful jewelry made of gold and precious gems and pearls. In her hand she held a gold goblet full of obscenities and the impurities of her immorality. A mysterious name was written on her forehead, Babylon the Great, mother of all prostitutes and obscenities in the world. I could see that she was drunk with the blood of God's holy people who were witnesses for Jesus. I stared at her in complete amazement." All right, so first 2 points here. I've already given you the point one, really. The great prostitute likely refers to a false religion. And point number 2, this false religion will have worldwide impact, amass great wealth, blaspheme the one true God, and persecute followers of Christ. Now, the fact that she's sitting on the beast means that that's kind of its vehicle and that it's clearly partnering with the beast. And when it talks about this beast, it says 7 heads, 10 horns. Well, that's very familiar. Blasphemy is written on its forehead. That is referring to the final beast. The could refer to the Antichrist, but it's the Antichrist one world government. It's that government that Daniel talks about and predicts in the future that will come and rule and during that final 7-year period. So that's the government. The world government is going to use the one world religion and vice versa. They're going to partner up and team together to convince the people to buy into what they want people to buy into. And so much so that together, including the religious aspect of it, not just the government, will turn on the true believers, people that accept Jesus Christ as their Savior, and they will persecute them to death. They will have blood on their hands. All right. So John is seeing this scene, and he's just dumbstruck. He doesn't know what to make of this scene, but more is explained in verse 7. "Why are you so amazed?" the angel asked. "I will tell you the mystery of this woman and of the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns on which she sits. The beast you saw was once alive but isn't now, and yet he will soon come out of the bottomless pit and go to eternal destruction. And the people who belong to this world, whose names were not written in the book of life before the world was made, will be amazed at the reappearance of this beast who had died. All right. One of the more interesting passages in Revelation. A lot of this one, scholars love to debate about this, and it kind of just sparks a lot of people's imagination. What is it talking about? This beast that once was, is not alive now, but will be alive again in the future, and he will come out up out of the bottomless pit and go to eternal destruction. Like, who is this? So who is this beast? What is going on here? Well, a lot of different theories. One theory, and this is why some people think that Judas Iscariot will somehow be the Antichrist. I don't buy into that theory, but it's interesting. And one of the reasons they believe that is because Jesus refers to Judas Iscariot as the son of perdition. And perdition is just a name for destruction, so son of destruction. And then also in Thessalonians, when it talks about, Paul talks about the Antichrist, clearly talking about the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, he refers to the Antichrist as the son of perdition. All right. So the fact that Judas was called this and the Antichrist was called this, and then you have chapter 17, and it talks about how there was someone, the beast, was once alive, but isn't now, but will be in the future. They're like, oh, Judas is going to come out of the bottomless pit, come back to life, be a new human being that will become the Antichrist. So it's like a new Judas Iscariot, like his spirit will be will live on earth again. I'm not saying it's outside the realm of possibility. I understand how all those things come together. But I would lean more towards that being possibly far-fetched. But possibility. The two more likely things, when it talks about once was, isn't now, will be in the future, one possibility is that it is referring to the more of the one world empire rather than the specific person of the Antichrist. And so what it could be referring to is the rise of the Roman Empire somehow. So the Roman Empire clearly once was, isn't now. I mean, it's not an empire now, but maybe once will be again. And could take the form of many different ways. Some people surmise that it might be the Roman Catholic Church will really have more influence. It's already pretty influential, like over a billion people claim to be Roman Catholic, that kind of thing. But also it could be just the rise of the European strength, because the Roman Empire really covered a little bit of Africa, a little bit of Asia, but all of Europe. And so if any world power rises out of that general area, it could be seen as the reestablishment of a Roman Empire, and could be the beast reborn. It's a possibility. My personal opinion, my favorite theory, is that it is talking specifically about the person, the Antichrist, and when it refers to the beast who was but isn't and then will be again, I think it might be specifically referring to how the Antichrist will be killed. Well, he lived, he was killed, the devil is allowed to resurrect him and fill his spirit and bring him back to life, and then he is again, okay? And so we talked about that in chapter 13 of Revelation, that whole scene. That is how the Antichrist really rises to prominence in world power, and how he gets people to worship him. Is he resurrects, and so he's worshipped, and he's kind of considered a Messiah and all those different things. I believe that when he is resurrected, I believe he will be fully demonic led. I mean, his spirit will come from the bottomless pit, and he will be all in to serving Satan in whichever way he wants. And so I think that's what it's referring to when it says once was, isn't now, but will be again. All right, but you can pick whichever theory you think is more likely, and we'll just agree to disagree. Let's go ahead to verse 9, though. Well, point number 3 is, like I said, Revelation 17:8 likely refers to Antichrist and how he will rise from the dead. All right, let's look at verse 9 now. This calls for a mind with understanding. The 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 hills where the woman rules. They also represent 7 kings. 5 kings have already fallen. The 6th now reigns, and the 7th is yet to come, but his reign will be brief. All right, I'm going to pause there because there's a lot going on here, and I'm going to explain point number 4. Revelation 17:9 is the primary basis for the belief that the Catholic Church will play a significant role in the worldwide false religion. That the Catholic Church will play a significant role in the worldwide false religion. So why do they believe this? Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate and go all in with, hey, maybe the Catholic Church will play a prominent role, and then we'll step back from that and look at it from a different angle. But first, the most significant line in here is this idea that the 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 hills where the woman rules. So this last empire, 7 hills, Rome is often referred to the city on 7 hills. And so to a lot of scholars, this is a direct reference to the fact that this final beast, that the final world religion will be working with, will be the Roman Empire in some way, shape, or form. And so there's that. That's very significant to them. And I'm going to go back to a couple other verses early in this chapter. When you see where it says in verse 4, the woman wore purple and scarlet clothing and beautiful jewelry made of gold and precious gems and pearls. And in her hand she held a gold goblet full of obscenities and the impurities of her immorality. All right, so again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. People will look at that and look at the fact that this is coming from Rome possibly, and they'll think about the College of Bishops and Archbishops, and think of the College of Cardinals. I don't even know if you're aware of the College of Bishops and Archbishops, but they kind of work like a Congress, like a House of Representatives and Senate. The College of Bishops and Archbishops and College of Cardinals work together. I'm sure you probably heard of College of Cardinals because you always hear about them when they have to decide on a new pope and all that kind of thing. But if you look at the way they're dressed, you just Google them, College of Bishops and Archbishops, they are dressed in ornate robes of purple. And if you look at College of Cardinals, they're known for their red robes. And so you have scarlet and you have red clothing. And they're usually jewels inset with them. They look very fancy. I mean, if you've ever seen the Pope's headgear, I mean, who knows how much that thing weighs? I don't even know how he's able to hold it on his head. You know, it's very ornate, very beautiful. There's also a lot of controversy sometimes in the Catholic Church, different things. In past history, Roman Catholic popes were some of the most evil men. I mean, there was all kinds of debauchery and sin and all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of unhealthy church practices. I believe that the Catholic Church has come a long way, especially in America, to kind of get rid of a lot of the things that are anti-biblical or outside of Scripture and kind of more focus on pursuing a relationship with Jesus. But the history of the Catholic Church has a lot of unhealthy things in it, a lot of things that are not biblical and that actually take you away from experiencing a personal relationship with Jesus. It's more, kind of going through a priest and praying to saints and all kinds of different practices that are ritualistic and not relational. And so it's plausible that the Roman Catholic Church, who already has a lot of followers, could buy in and be a major player and even possibly be the face and name of this final one world religion. That's a possibility. All right. If we don't like that idea and we want to throw that out and give the Catholic Church more credit than that, you could say, one, the word for hills in verse 9 is literally translated mountains. And so hills is kind of like a biased interpretative approach to kind of point more towards this being Rome. But 7 hills, if you translate them mountains, and suddenly if you read 7 mountains, well, they're not mountains, all right? It's hills, it's not mountains, and so you wouldn't even look at it that way. And so maybe the mountains is symbolic of the nations that are ruled by these 7 heads, these kings and that kind of stuff. And so maybe it's more dealing with empires and heads of state than it is referring to Rome and the Catholic Church. And then when it gets in specifics, verse 10, all right, they also represent 7 kings. And then it says, verse 10, 5 kings have already fallen. The 6th now reigns, and the 7th is yet to come, but his reign will be brief. This passage is another passage that really, to me, supports my interpretive approach that Revelation in Daniel is largely a revelation to the Jewish people. Now, we're supposed to read it and embrace it, understand it, but my belief is that the church will be raptured before these events happen, and that these are warnings to the people, the remnant that we left behind that become followers of Christ, but also to God's people, the Jews, who he wants to redeem. He promised that he would redeem, and was always his plan to redeem. And so I say that is because when we talk about these 7 kings, these are 7 kings that are important to the Jewish people. If you look over the history of the world, you could come up with other kingdoms, other world powers that established themselves. But when you talk about the Jewish people, there's only 7 kingdoms that have played any kind of role in their history while they've been a nation. The first was the Egyptian Empire, where the people, with the help of Joseph and Jacob and all his kids, they established the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, inside Egypt. And of course, Moses led them to freedom. The first empire that came and rose up was very strong and then fell was the Egyptian Empire. The empire after that was the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians were the ones that took the northern kingdom of Israel and brought them to captivity and basically did away and destroyed, never to return, the northern kingdom. All right, so you have the Assyrian Empire that came and then fell. Then you have the Babylonian Empire, which is the third kingdom to come and then go. The Babylonian Empire is the one that brought Judah into captivity. And so the nation of Israel that was still known to be Israel at that point was taken into captivity and was not to return for many, many years after that. So that was the Babylonian Empire. The fourth empire after that was the Mede-Persian Empire. And then the empire after that was the Greek Empire led by Alexander the Great. So 5 empires that came and then left. And then it says the 6th empire now reigns. Well, as John is writing this, the Roman Empire is still thriving. The Roman Empire had been around for a couple hundred years, and they're going to be around for many, many more. And so the 6th empire now reigns, and the 7th is yet to come. Now, there's lots of empires that happen after the Roman Empire. Lots of nations come to power. Look at the British Empire. Think about how much of America has been a dominant world power. Think about Russia's influence, all kinds of different things. All right, but the one that matters to Israel, when Israel has been a nation, is the one that is going to come in the future when they are once again a nation. So we haven't had a world power since 1948 that was just completely dominant. All right. After World War II, you can't name another world power that we were probably most in charge, but we weren't a world power in that we try to dominate the world. And so there is going to be a 7th. That's the final one of a world power that's going to come and reign. All right. So let's move forward now. So that brings me to point number 5. The 5 fallen kings refer to the Egyptian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Medo-Persian, and Greek empires. Rome is a 6th, and the 7th will be a future worldwide ruling power. All right. Verse number 11. The scarlet beast that was, but is no longer, is the 8th king. He is like the other 7, and he too is headed for destruction. The 10 horns of the beast are the 10 kings who have not yet risen to power. They will be appointed to their kingdoms for one brief moment to reign with the beast. Look at how all these verses just confirm what had been said in other chapters of Daniel, other chapters of Revelation. But this idea that the 10 horns represent 10 kingdoms, 10 kings that will rule with the beast is again confirmed in these verses. So the 8th world power comes on the back of the 7th world power, brief succession. The 8th one will just be the Antichrist saying, okay, I know we were at one world power with 10 kings in charge, but now I'm in charge. Everyone's going to worship me. I'm in charge. So he's kind of his own world power at that point. Verse 13, they will agree to give him their power and authority. Together they will go to war against the Lamb. But the Lamb will defeat them because he is the Lord of all lords, the King of all kings. And he is called and chosen, and faithful ones will be with him. And of course the Lamb is Jesus, and the beast can't conquer the Lamb. Verse 15, then the angel said to me, The waters where the prostitute is ruling represent masses of people of every nation and language. The scarlet beast and his 10 horns all hate the prostitute. They will strip her naked, eat her flesh, and burn her remains with fire. For God has put a plan into their minds, a plan that will carry out his purposes. They will agree to give their authority to the scarlet beast, and so the words of God will be fulfilled. And this woman you saw in your vision represents the great city that rules over the kings of the world. All right. Point number 6 is this. The beast hates the prostitute because he wants to be directly worshipped. As soon as he is strong enough to make that happen, he will turn on the false church. So it looked like they were partnering together. Here's this woman riding on the beast. They do this together, and honestly, the one world government will need that one world religion to back them up and give them authority and get the people to buy in to this. But the whole time, that one world government, those leaders, those kings, so to speak, will hate the woman. They'll hate the false religion. They don't want to use them. Why do they not? Why do they hate the woman? Why do they not want to use the one world religion? Because they want the adulation for themselves. They want the worship. They want to be praised. And so the moment that they are powerful enough, and they will get that power because the beast will resurrect from the dead and perform various miracles with the false prophet, that will convince the people to buy into worshiping him. Once that happens and they have that kind of power, they will turn on the one world religion. They will probably murder a lot of the heads of that one world religion, because just like human nature, I think a lot of those heads of that one world religion will hold on to their power and try to hold on to it, but they'll probably be killed for it. But they will tear up that church and refocus all the people to worship the beast, worship the Antichrist, worship Satan directly. And so that is what is going to happen in the future. All right, point number 7 is this. Babylon is more than just a city. It represents a culture of rebellion towards God. Throughout history, there have been many different cities that have best fit the description of Babylon, and it's likely the one reference in this chapter won't literally be called Babylon. So we talked about this a little bit with last chapter, but it's completely the truth. It's a spirit of Babylon, spirit of rejection against God, of just itchy ears, grasping on to this one world religion, and then of course the people swinging towards worship of the Antichrist, just anything not to believe in God and hold themselves responsible and accountable for their own sins and their own immorality. So they will grasp onto these things. So that is the spirit of Babylon. But there will be a city that the beast operates out of. That will be his primary capital. And so there will be a future Babylon that will be able to look and say, okay, this is a city where that's been split in 3 by an earthquake. This is a city that is the hub of the cultural mindset that is antagonistic towards God and towards Jesus and his followers. There will be a specific city, but there's no telling what it would be. I mean, there's just no telling. It could be a city that has not even been established in this world so far. It could be one that rises to great influence. My personal opinion is a city that we very well know, but that will just become the hub of the Antichrist. And it will already be a city that is involved with immorality and heavy in trade and very important with commerce and the finances of the world, all those kind of things. And it will come together, and it will be the hub of just this antagonistic spirit towards God. And God will deal with them. And it will be symbolic how he deals with that city, but it's really to deal with the spirit of the anti-God mindset. All right, a lot going on in chapter 17. I hope you found that interesting. Read ahead to chapter 18, which is also dealing with more specifics about the fall of Babylon, and we'll interpret and translate those verses next week. See you then.